Proxmox has a free version that we can download that's not as functional as the paid version, but it's enough to get your virtual machines up and installed and running as needed. I'm at Proxmox.com, and you can see they make multiple different products. One of those is the Proxmox virtual environment. I'm going to go to the download section where I'll download the Proxmox version 9 installer. Once it's downloaded, I can go ahead and boot from my physical host using this ISO file and install Proxmox and create my first virtual machine. I booted off of the Proxmox ISO. I'm doing this in a Hyper-V virtual environment just so I can demonstrate this. I have the option to install the graphical mode or the terminal UI. So I'll choose the graphical mode, and installation is now started. This is a version of Linux that's going to be installed on this virtual machine, and once it's complete, there'll be a website I can use to log in to Proxmox. I'll choose to agree to the terms. I'm going to choose my default target hard disk, which is 127 gigabytes, and I'll choose the default US information for the keyboard. I've entered the password I'm going to use for the root user, as well as a valid email for alerts. Here you can see the IP address that's picked from DHCP for the installation, the gateway, as well as the DNS server. And it's asking me to add in a fully qualified domain name. If you have multiple different network interface cards, you can change the management interface. I only have the one, so I'll just leave it as the default. And I'll choose Install. Make sure you write down the management interface IP address because you'll need that to connect to the website. The installation is complete, and I can certainly log in using the credentials that I set up. And now I have shell access. What I'd like to do is to access this using the website. On the login page, it showed the IP address as well as the port to connect to Proxmox. So I'm going to go ahead and connect to that. It's okay if you get this continue unsafe link. It's just because it's a self-signed certificate. Now I'll add in the username and password. And here you can change things like the realm if you'd like, if you have an authentication server, as well as the language. And here is Proxmox for the first time. You can see lots of different options here, such as the storage information. You can get the backup information if you'd like to back this up. You can run replication to another location if you'd like. You've got permissions such as users, and right now I just have the root user. And lots of other options that you can see as you scroll down. The next step would be to create your first virtual machine. I'm going to go to where it says Create VM in the upper right, and I'm going to create a VM with the name Win2025 for Windows Server 2025. The VM ID is the default 100 and will increment by 1 with each new virtual machine. And the node is Proxmox, which means I just have the one server installed, so there's no other option. Now for the ISO or CD-DVD, I'm going to choose the physical CD-DVD drive because I've got that loaded up. Click Next. And now I have the option for things like adding a virtual trusted platform module if you're going to be using BitLocker or installing Windows 11. I'll choose Next. Now I have the option for the type of disk, and we've got multiple different types of disk. One is going to be IDE, which is going to be slower, but the server will recognize that particular hard drive during boot up. However, it will end up failing in the end because IDE will not work with Windows Server 2025 with Proxmox. However, if we choose SCSI, which is the desired option in most cases, we'll need to also install special drivers to make this work. I'm also going to change the size of the drive to be 50 gigabytes. I don't need backup, so I'll choose Next. I'll choose 2 cores for the installation. And then I can choose the type of processor here if I'd like. In most cases, leaving it with the x86-64 is fine. I'll choose how much RAM I'd like to use. In this case, I want to choose just 1024 since I don't have a lot of RAM on this Proxmox server, and that'll work just fine with the installation. I'll choose my default network card, but if you have multiple ones, you can choose those, and click Confirm and Finish. Now I'm going to double click on my virtual machine and expand it. Click Start Now and choose to boot off of my DVD when prompted. The installation has started. While we're waiting, I went ahead and downloaded the driver needed for this Windows Server 2025 SCSI drive. And you can get that from this particular website as well as other ones, but I chose the fedorapeople.org, and then I downloaded the Windows ISO file that you see here. I'll go back to my installation. Now I'll run through the installation. Now I need to pay attention to the driver installation for the drive when we get to that section. And now we can see it's looking for the hard drive to install the operating system, but it's not there. So I'm going to switch over my DVD to that driver that I had downloaded from the website at Fedora. I'll click Load Driver and browse. And I'll click the AMD 64, 2K25, and it found the driver I need. Now I'll click to install. And it's found my drive. I want to switch back to the Windows Server 2025 disk and go ahead and continue with the installation. And I'll click to install. And Windows is logging in for the first time. On the left-hand side, you can see that there are several options since this is using VNC, which is a type of remote control that's built into the web browser. You can restart your computer, make changes to settings. You can also press Ctrl-Alt-Delete, which is what I did in order to log in. Proxmox gives you a lot of great options for virtual machines as well as other products.